Good morning. My name is Tom. I'm up at the cabin today, as you can see. We got 15 inches of snow in the last day and a half. It's 11th of April, so I think we've got enough snow. I still got 10-foot snow banks out here in front of the cabin. But today's video is going to be about my basic survival kit. And the only thing basic about it is this is all that I bring. It's there's all the tools that I need to spend the night, spend a day comfortably, build shelter, all that stuff. But the reason I'm doing this video is I want you to notice one thing about my survival kit that is my actually everyday carry that I bring out into the woods with me. There is not one gadget in this pile of gear. It's kind of a pet peeve of mine that I see so many people's kits are so full of gadgets. The problem with small gadgets, number one, you just don't need them. Go out and spend a real day in the woods. You don't need gadgets to survive the day. And like I said, the problem with gadgets is most of the time when you really do need them, they will fail you. They're just not made for the abuse of the real world of being out in the woods. Nothing out there is soft and gentle. Everything out there will sneak up and smack you on the back of the head. So what I want you to notice about this pile of gear, there are no gadgets. So if you're a gadget person, you're probably not going to like this video. But if you want to really learn something about what it is to be out into the woods, stay tuned for this video. The tools that I have here are the tools of the trade for being out into the woods overnight or whatever. And I'm going to start with what I carry on my person. All of this stuff, you don't really even need a bag for this stuff, a day bag. I do carry a small day bag, but only for the comfort of some of this gear and some of the, if I want to bring a lunch or something like that, that would end up in my day bag. But a lot of times when I'm deer hunting, depending on what I'm doing, I'll either have the day bag with me or not. It kind of depends on how much the terrain I want to cover and all of that stuff for that particular day. But if I'm out scouting or going to be sitting in a tree stand or something like that, a lot of times this is the gear that is always with me. So anyways, I start out with, I have a small saw that goes on my neck. Nothing fancy about this saw. The reason I carry it, it's really good for small work. I don't use it for cutting firewood or any of that stuff. It's more for making Maya dust and stuff like that for building fires. And the other side, the biggest reason I carry it, it has a 90-degree spine. So it will work on my ferro rod. I love building fires with flint and steel and ferro rod. So this right here is one of them things that's always on me. And I keep it around my neck, and after a while, you don't even notice it's there. This is a utility knife for me. I know a lot of people love the heck out of these knives. To me, it's a knife that I can beat on. It's just plain a utility knife. I use it for absolutely everything. It does take a good edge, keep a good edge, and it is a pretty tough little knife. I never go into the woods without a compass. Never. I have a whistle. The reason I have a whistle is because you can only holler so long if you're lost or you broke leg or whatever. So whistle works a lot better. 3 blows is your signal blow that you need help, you're in distress. I always have a backup compass. I carry 2 compasses. Now, we didn't have this years ago. Now I carry a GPS. Between the GPS and the compass, I think they go hand in hand together. I can do so much more out into the woods now. I want you to notice my lanyard on my GPS. The lanyard is not paracord. The few feet of paracord you could put there and think that's going to be a wonderful fix isn't nothing to me. What this is jute twine. I have a lanyard for my GPS, and I also have a fire starter. That means that lanyard does double task. So that's why most of the time when you see my lanyards, it's jute twine. It's always there. I use it for tying up my small gear. I use it for all that stuff. So it's just a great fire starter. That's why I don't carry paracord. I don't find a need for it. And on my belt, I keep one piece of fat wood. This is a mag light flashlight case. Light's no good. I saved the case. It takes a nice little piece of fat wood. Always there, always ready to go. In my pocket, I keep a flint and steel lighter. Lights every time you want it. This one probably needs just a little bit of fuel added to it. But I use flint and steel, and I use the ferro rod. But in case of emergencies, I do have a lighter. I don't carry a Bic lighter. I don't think that they are reliable enough. For the GPS, I carry 2 spare batteries. Always. GPS with no battery, absolutely useless. The other thing I always have on my person is one saw. Especially when I got the day bag. This rides down in the bottom of that day bag easy. If not, I stick this in my back pocket. It rides really good back there in my pants. It's always there. It's never fallen out. This is my hunting knife. My actual hunting knife. I realize it's not a stiff blade. A lot of people say, oh my God, it's not a stiff blade. I carry this knife. I've been carrying this knife for probably 20 years. It's a 3-in-1. I use this blade for skinning my deer, and this is also the skinning part for opening it up. You can open up a deer or a bear just like it's a zipper. And then I have a saw blade here. The same task for that saw blade is making dust for building fires, Maya dust. I use it on fat wood. I use it on almost anything. Also, I can use that for my stick that holds my pot over the fire, all of that. So that's why this is always on my belt. It's a 3-in-1. Why other hunters and fishermen don't carry something like this, I'll never know. I've been using this for years and years and years. Stainless steel, doesn't give me any problems at all. It's always there. The other thing on my belt is a Leatherman. And it's not a jagged It's not a gadget Leatherman. It's not one of them little tiny ones. This is a full-size Leatherman. It's a tool. When I take this out to use it, I'm fixing something that is broke. That's why I use a full-size Leatherman. I don't use one of the little gadget ones. This is what's on me every day that I go in the woods. This is another little knife belt pocket that I put a ferro rod in. That's always there. So on my belt, I have a ferro rod. I have fat wood. This isn't on my belt, but I've got everything right here I need to build a fire with. And I didn't get out my other knife. Also on my belt when I'm hunting is this. If I'm only scouting, then I put this in my day bag. I don't bother putting it on my belt. It's a large buck knife. I've had it for 25, 30 years. That's what I use for any heavy-duty work around the cabin. As well as if you catch a big fish up here, you need a big knife to help get him filleted. So that's on my belt. And always on me is 2 or 3 pairs of gloves. This is the best way to help yourself in cold conditions as far as hypothermia is concerned. Because if you have cold hands, you cannot build a fire. If your hands are to the point where they won't move, and I think that's most people that will be watching this video, haven't been in a situation where they were so cold that their hands wouldn't work. That happens. That's real. That happens if you before you ever even think about getting hypothermia, your hands are the first sign. They get to the point where they're just so cold that they won't move. That's why you need to have gloves. You need to have 2 or 3 pairs of gloves. Because if you need to build a fire to dry 2 pair out, it would be nice to have a dry pair to put on. So I'm drying my gloves out. I have dry gloves. I always have dry gloves. I also have in my pocket, I have a bag. I am a hunter-gatherer. When I am out hunting, even if you needed to spend the night, I have a drawstring bag. This thing can do so many things. You can use it for collecting birch bark. You can use it for collecting fine twigs for your fire. You can fill it up with leaves at night. You can fill it up with fir boughs. You have a pillow or you got something you can sit on. You can fill this up with leaves and fir boughs, and this is a heck of a seat to set on if you're sitting around the campfire. It does two tasks. It either does that, does actually several tasks. You can't really say two. A lot of my gear does 2 or 3 things. But this is one of those things that is always with me, because out in the woods, I am a hunter-gatherer. I am always gathering stuff. Birch bark, fat wood, punk wood. I gather chaga. You never know what you're going to stumble across out there. And I bring it back here to the cabin, and I put it in my fire building. When I have my day pack, this is my fire bag. I will put a description I will put a link in the description of the video I did on my fire bag. This is a video all by itself. This is full of fire starting materials. I don't go in the woods outside of hunting. Sometimes I don't carry this when I'm hunting. It depends on if I've got the day bag with me or not. But this is always in my day bag. There's a pocket for it. But I wanted to put it into this video because I think it's a nice thing to have with you when you have all of your fire tinders with you. I use nothing that is store-bought for tinders. Everything I use, it comes from the natural tinders that are out in the woods. The other thing I have is 100 feet of rope. This isn't paracord. I won't spend the money for it. I think paracord is, I know everybody out there, this is gonna sound terrible, but everybody out there loves the paracord. They almost worship it. I don't get it. To me, it's too much money for the little that it will do. I use a good quality rope. This is 100 feet of it. When I cut it up, I'm not cutting up a very expensive piece of rope. This will build and will make anything that I want, so I'm really not too awful concerned about it. That's always with me. And the other thing, because I do consider this a survival kit, and I don't see this in too many people's survival kits, I am a hunter-gatherer. When I'm in the woods, I've got a gun with me. This is usually the gun. It's a single shot 12 gauge. I shoot squirrels, I shoot partridge, I shoot porcupines, you name it, I've gathered it with this gun. It's the gun I carry. The reason it's a single shot is on snowy days in the wintertime when it's cold, snow falls on you and your hands will melt the snow, and then the water runs down into your gun. So if you have an automatic or if you have a pump, they will freeze up because the gun is already cold because it's cold steel, but the water that's running off you will run into everything and make it freeze up. These guns, if you get enough water on them, they still will. But I've never had that happen with this gun, not like I have with pumps and automatics. So that's why this is what I consider a survival gun. If I'm out scouting, like I said, this is with me. And the nice thing about it is it takes several loads of shotgun shells. Now I have a small game load that I buy. I use number 6s. I use that on absolutely everything. A number 6 is big enough to knock down a rabbit. It's okay for a partridge. You don't quite need a 6 for partridge, but it does have a little bit more reach. I like a 1 ounce load, and like I said, number 6s. But also for this same gun, you can have some turkey loads. So you can have a turkey load for that gun in your pocket. This is double-aught buck. Now you've got a load for deer. This will knock down a deer at 65 to 85 yards. No bullets in that right now, but I wanted to show you the box. I always have at least 2 or 3 double-aught buck with me, stuck into my pocket. And also you can shoot a slug with it. So you've got big ground, you want to knock down a bear, that'll definitely do it. You want to knock down a deer, that'll do it. You want to knock down a turkey, that'll do it. All the other small game is this. So there's 4 rounds for one gun. That's why I don't understand why when everybody's showing you this survival kit, why not have a gun? There's a lot of things that are never closed season up here in the summertime. Red squirrels, you can hunt them 12 months a year. You can hunt porcupine 12 months out of the year. There's no cutoff date to it. There are on some of the other animals like gray squirrels and all that, but if I was in a survival situation, I would definitely shoot a gray squirrel if I was in a survival situation outside of the season. It's just the way it is. And the other thing in my survival kit is a hatchet. I always have a hatchet with me. Nothing special about this hatchet. I cannot see spending all the money that I see some people spend on an axe and a hatchet. It's a hunk of steel made to take an edge that chops firewood. So you could take from that what you want to take. But as an old woodsman, I've got several axes, and I can guarantee you I haven't spent a lot of money on them. Depending on what I'm doing, I take a man-size axe. The reason I take a man-size axe is if I'm out scouting and I'm going to be blazing trails and stuff like that, this is the kind of axe that I want. It'll do a lot better job, faster, and got a lot more oomph to it. So I got several miles of trails out back of my cabin. Most of them have been made with these two items right here. I have, like I said, several miles out to different tree stands and ground blinds. I've been here for years, so that's what I've been making. But I always bring, not as a general hike, but when I'm going out to do maintenance work, I bring a tool. You ever hear the saying, don't bring a knife to a gunfight? Well, that's kind of what I feel about axes. Don't bring a knife to a gunfight when you're going out to actually do some work out in the woods. And the other thing I keep on my person is a water bottle and a thermos. I think they go hand in hand. You heat the water up in your water bottle, have your tea, have your lunch, whatever you want to have. And then before I put my fire out, I always make either a coffee or a hot tea that goes into here, or hot chocolate, depending on what's going on for that day. But that's why I don't see this in too many people's kits either. To me, they go hand in hand. Just because I see it in a lot of older people's kits, because they know the value of having a small thermos along. The other thing you see on the table is you see a real set of snowshoes. And another real set of snowshoes. I say that because you see a lot of the newer snowshoes of today, they're more made for snowshoeing on snowmobile trails and groomed trails. The kind of stuff that I do, them make-believe snowshoes wouldn't get you very far out here. Most of the time this winter, we've been in approximately 5 to 6 feet of snow on the ground. So you need a good set of shoes. The other thing, if you notice on these shoes, is it only goes around my toe. That's it. There's no back strap. It's just a toe strap. Once you've been snowshoeing and take the time to, I've been on snowshoes for over 40 to, well, closer to 50 years. Hate to say that. But anyways, this is a military set of snowshoes. And the reason I bought these are, when I bought them, they're $50. They're indestructible. Indestructible. I have 3 sets of the old style, which I absolutely love. But if I'm going out to do work in the woods with axes and saws and cutting trails, this is a snowshoe that I put on. Because you can whack it with an axe. Number one, it's only $50. And number two, you're not going to hurt it. And the other thing is this is also a fire starter. I forget the word right now, but you can scrape this off here and spark it with a ferro rod. I want to say magnesium, but I might be right, but I'm not sure. But anyways, it's a fire starter, it's a snowshoe, but I really wanted you to see the toe strap. You don't need to learn how to snowshoe, and you won't need to have that big gob. And the same thing with your binders. If your binder fails you out in the woods because it's made of too much plastic, and that's when this stuff is going to fail. It's going to fail when it's below zero. And same thing with metal and any of the parts that you bring out. That's why if you notice a lot of my gear, it's big. It's bulky. It's a tool. It's a real tool. It's not something that will fail you when the temperature drops below zero or drops down to 20, 30 below, which it does in a lot of cases up here. So that's why you see me with the kind of equipment that I have. I think I have, other than if this is my day pack, nothing fancy. It's just a $30 pack from Walmart. I have several of them. It depends on what I'm doing and what I'm doing for the day. But a lot of times, if I'm going out just for a hike or scouting or gathering, a lot of times this is on my back. And a lot of times it is for deer season too. Because I will put a long john top in there. My water bottles go in there. My fire kit goes in there. So depending on what I'm doing that day, it kind of depends on how I pack this thing. So if you have any questions at all about how I use this stuff and just want to plain talk about survival kits, I had someone request that what my everyday carry was. Most of the time, this is it right here. So take from it what you want. My main objective with this video is I would like to discourage people from relying so much on gadgets. Gadgets are not where it's at for the survival kit. In my world, you can judge a man's abilities out in the bush by the amount of gadgets that he lugs. If I get someone that shows up here for a week's worth of hunting with me and they show up with a ton of gadgets, I usually keep a little closer eye on them because gadgets is a false sense of security. And a lot of the gadgets are nothing that you need out in the bush. So the more you learn, the more you practice, the more everything that you need. I have always been a firm believer in this. Everything that you need to survive outside of equipment, tools, real tools, you can find out in the woods. You can find your shelter material. You can find your fire starting materials. You can find your cordage. You just can. And the type of shelters that I build, they don't require a lot of cordage. A lot of times the reason I keep this around is basically to help me haul out a deer, haul out a porcupine, get a porcupine hump at a tree so I can skin him easily. Or the same thing with any kind of animal. If I got a rabbit or any of that stuff, I use them to tie the rabbits together. That's basically what the cordage is for. I can find enough timber out in the woods, especially if I have an axe and a saw. I can find enough to build a small shelter. And if you haven't followed my series on don't build a shelter and why not, go ahead and look at that video. I'll drop a link down into the bottom of this, and also at the very end of this video, I'll put your thumbnail so you can scroll over to that. But you don't need a whole lot of gadgets. So that's going to wrap this up, and I will see you on the next one.